Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome to episode 42 of the Alec Walt Show. I'm your host, Alec Walt, alongside another very special guest, and today we're talking about the Chicago Bears. Andy Dalton suffered an injury in the Week 2 matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Joining us to talk about all things Andy Dalton and more is Andy Hopper, the host of the Brew Party Podcast. Andy, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you coming back.
Alec, dude, always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me back, asking me to be back, and letting me rant about my Chicago Bears. So I'm super excited about this. Yes, he did have to get somebody named Andy to speak on Andy Dalton. Is just how it works. Just a coincidence that I also root for the Bears, I guess. But thank you so much for having me, Alec. Excited to chop it up with you.
No problem, man. So we talked about an injury yesterday. Andy Dalton has suffered a knee injury against the Cincinnati Bengals. According to NFL.com, it's looking like he avoided a significant knee injury. Initial exams show no ACL tear and no damage to the MCL, so it's looking like a potential bone bruise. Still waiting for the official report and an official timetable, but never good to see your starting quarterback down. It looks like he potentially dodged a pretty major injury, because that non-contact injuries never look good, no matter who it is.
No, I mean, if you watch back the game, or you were watching the game on Sunday, early second quarter, you see Dalton go for a scramble to the right side. He's moving towards out of bounds, and you saw him tweak it on the field. Like you said, it was non-contact. He plants his left leg, and you see it kind of go. He comes up hobbled. Justin Fields comes in to finish the drive. I think they went 3 and out, or they punted or something, and they try to put Dalton back on the field for the next drive. He can't go. He's hobbling around out there. So from that point on, Fields finished the game. So Fields got the last 3 drives of the first half and then played the entire second half. I'm sure not what he was expecting from that game, not what Andy Dalton was expecting from his revenge game against the Cincinnati Bengals, but I know it was a non-contact, and I believe it was Rappaport that posted it, that update that you read for NFL.com. It is good news, because you never root for an injury. Because, I mean, we all know as Bears fans how excited we are to see Justin Fields play and how we do want him in there over Andy Dalton. But I can assure you, none of us are like, yeah, we want Andy Dalton to hurt himself, and that's why. Exactly. We don't root for injuries. We want everything to be okay. And it is good news. It's great news for Andy Dalton that this potentially is just a bone bruise. You know, you go from missing a week, like if this was potentially ACL or MCL, that's done for the year.
Yeah.
And you go from that to missing maybe only potentially a week or 2. I think that is good news for this football team. Just as far as the leadership he brings in the huddle, I do think Justin Fields is a way more dynamic player, and maybe would make it so this offense would improve. I don't know if it'd be improving like by leaps and bounds and be this huge improvement, but I do believe they would be better with Justin Fields under center. They still did struggle yesterday. You know, they only scored 1 offensive touchdown, and that was on the first drive to Allen Robinson. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. We saw Matt Nagy in the press conference today. Somebody asked him about. I have to just read what this tweet said, because it was just unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable. So, reporter, is Andy Dalton still your starter if healthy? Matt Nagy responds, says, that's something that I'm not going to get into with scheme. Reporter, that's not scheme. Nagy, yes, it is. He's terrible with the media. It is just, there's something new every day that we see on Twitter that he said and just gets dragged for it. I will say this. I saw a good tweet from Tom Fornelli. He's a huge Bears fan. He works for CBS Sports. Well, you've done it. You've made me come to Matt Nagy's defense. The Bears are going to have different offensive schemes for Dalton and Fields. So the starting QB is a personnel problem that directly relates to scheme. I'll never forgive any of you. Because if you say Fields is the starter, Cleveland knows which tape to study. If you don't say who the starter is, Cleveland has to prepare for both. It's holding on to a little advantage for as long as you can. So I agree with that part of it.
Yes, I do too.
I do understand that. So after reading that, it kind of took me off the ledge a little bit from the first tweet. But, you know, it's not like Fields came in and was super impressive and lit the world on fire either, right? So 6 of 13 for 60 yards through the air with an interception, a pretty bad one at that. I do want to point out Allen Robinson dropped a for sure touchdown. That was a perfect ball. It literally hit him right here. If you go back and watch the play, it's like Fields threw the perfect ball. He had a drop. I think Mooney had a drop that would have been another, I think, at least 30 or 40 yards onto Fields' stat line. What he did do well, though, 10 rushes for 31 yards out of the pocket. Most of his best plays yesterday were him scrambling and making plays with his feet and getting first downs, with his legs. So this week, okay, so they're going into week 3 with the Browns, right? It has all the makings of Justin Fields being the starter as of right now. We don't have an official injury or, timeline for Andy Dalton. Nick Foles is still on this roster.
Yeah.
How does he fit into this shit? It'd be the most Matt Nagy thing of all time to go, you know what? Let's drop Foles out there week 3 against Cleveland. But so I also, Nagy said some really good things about Justin after the game. He admitted, he goes, I believe that Justin is probably further along than we thought, which it's actually nice of him to own up and say something like that.
You don't see that quote as much as the other one.
Right. He goes, he's probably further along than we thought he'd be at this point right now. So if that's the case, then we feel good about it. Justin has worked really, really hard to get to this point, even today in that moment as a rookie, coming into that situation, super calm, super cool, even after the interception when that dropped, when he dropped and the zero look made the play. He was very cool out there and knowing to try to make a play. So those are high praise. That's high praise from your head coach after really getting thrown into a situation that, I mean, I'm sure he'll tell you he was ready for, because you got to be ready at any moment when you're in the NFL. But you have to think about it like he's not, like, throughout practice with the week, he's not practicing with the ones. Like, he's getting a few reps here and there, but I mean, most of those reps are going to Andy Dalton. He still needs to build a little bit of a chemistry with these guys, and honestly, the receivers have to work on these drops, man.
Yeah.
Like that was a problem in the preseason. He had a lot of balls that were, if the ball is hitting you in the hands, I'm sorry, it's on the receiver. So Justin Fields left a lot to be desired in week 1, but I also had to tell myself that you really got to temper your expectations for this dude. All of Chicago Bears Nation needs to temper our expectations. He is just a rookie at the end of the day. I do believe he's going to be a really good quarterback in this league, but I also believe that doesn't just happen like overnight.
Yeah, no, you're right. But the one thing with the Bears right now is it seems like every time Andy Dalton's name is brought up, it is just starter, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the Bears are making the right call being so set with Dalton?
Yes and no. I think they're making the right call being set and having like the guy, because I think it's always good in football, no matter what level at the quarterback position, your team knows who the guy is, who QB1 is. I do like that aspect of it. I just don't like the aspect that they are so firm on Andy Dalton, because, Justin as a rookie, in my opinion, he's going to learn a lot more if you just put him out there and put him in these in-game situations than he's going to sitting on the sideline watching Andy Dalton average 8 yards of completion and not throw the ball farther than 15 yards down the field. So the Bears didn't look great on Sunday. They got saved by their defense. The defense seemed to be all the way back. They picked Joe Burrow off on 3 straight passes. Yeah. Got their first pick 6 since I think week 3 of 2019. So it was really the defense that won this game. There was only 1 offensive touchdown. That was on the Bears' first drive of the game. I think Cincinnati ended up getting 2 offensive touchdowns, but hats off to the defense for saving this game, taking a little pressure off the rookie. But there's going to be growing pains. There's always growing pains in a rookie career. But to answer your question, I don't love how just firm, and every time it's Andy Dalton's brought up, even just the name, it's starter. Yeah, no, QB1. Like, there's no discussion about it. If Justin Fields goes out week 3 and has a week, incredible game, obviously he's going to have to do better than this week. That conversation has to start ending. At a certain point, Nagy is coaching for his job. right? This is their last year. Him and Pace. I mean, Ryan Pace has to have just as much blame in this too. He's the one that built the team. He's been making a lot of those decisions in the front office as well. I don't know. I don't love it though. I don't love it. I like an open competition, but at the same time, I understand the importance of your locker room knowing who the guy is and who that starter is at the most important position in football.
So if you were the head coach of the Chicago Bears and you were asked who would you start if both QBs were healthy, who would you start as the Bears quarterback?
If both were healthy, I'm still going with Justin Fields because I believe in learning on the fly. And I believe that he is going to learn more with in-game experience, having to make those reads in real time against elite defenses more than he is going to sitting on the sideline watching. I just don't get it. I know Andy Dalton hasn't been terrible, but the thing with Dalton, like the first 2 games, like he'll put together like 1 touchdown drive. And then after that, it's 3 and out, 3 and out. We'll get a couple first downs and then punt. It's just like he's good for like 1 decent drive a game. I mean, we know what Andy Dalton is. He's a game manager. He's a veteran quarterback that's been around. So I understand that aspect of it, of like wanting to go with him, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Everybody wants to make the comparison. Oh, Patrick Mahomes had to sit for a year. Oh, what about Aaron Rodgers? He sat for 3 years. I'm sorry, Andy Dalton's not Brett Favre. Yeah. I don't even know if Andy Dalton, like Alex Smith was having a great year that year. And who's to say if Patrick Mahomes went and played his rookie year, they wouldn't have been even better. It's just all hearsay, and I hate comparing this situation to that one because it's just not the same thing. Andy Dalton is not the Bears franchise quarterback. He's not been here for 10 plus years. He's here on a 1-year, $10 million deal that they brought in because they didn't even think Justin Fields would be there for him at 11. So plans are allowed to change. You know what I mean? Like things change in life. Life is crazy. And for Nagy to just be so set in his ways with the Red Rocket, and I don't know, man. It doesn't feel right for somebody that is supposed to be coaching for his job. I know he's made the playoffs. Everybody's like, people forget the Bears made the playoffs last year. They were 8-8, and it was an expanded playoff.
Yeah.
Come on, man. And I will say this about the scheme that he was running in LA was ridiculous. The play calling, not letting Andy Dalton was for passes over 15 yards. He was 0 for 2 with an interception. I think his longest completion was 8 yards. You don't let Allen Robinson run a route that's longer than 8 yards. That's not going to work. I don't care how much you respect the LA defense, but you have to take some shots. You have to open it up a little bit, or it was the most conservative, tuck your tail between your legs football I have ever seen. But good on them for going out and getting the win in week 2, despite their best efforts, almost blowing it at the end. There's a lot for this team to work on. I'm not saying if Justin Fields is named the starter, there instantly everything is fixed. But I am saying it's going to be a more dynamic, better offense that you can run more plays. You can open up your playbook even more and keep your fans interested. Keep it exciting. The entire nation, it seems like there's a story on Justin Fields on every major sports television network and sports radio network every week. Why not? I just don't understand what the point of keeping Dalton in these situations where I don't believe he's doing. I don't believe he's setting us up to win when he is getting trotted out there under center.
So say potentially Justin Fields is the week 3 starter against the Cleveland Browns, a solid defense. Again, you don't want to deal with Myles Garrett in his face all game, but if you're Bill Lazor, what's your game plan for Justin Fields in this offense against that defense?
I think it's going to have to be a little different than what we saw on Sunday. They were very, like I said, conservative with him. It was a lot of like read options. It was a lot of handoffs, a lot of play action. They're going to have to let him open up a little bit. Like I mentioned earlier, he had 10 rushes for 31 yards. I love what he's able to do with his legs. Get him out in space and see what he can do. If I'm Bill Lazor, I'm using more shotgun formations, to be honest. I'm letting my receivers get a little bit downfield, letting us get past the sticks. But also, we're going to have to let David Montgomery get his. we're going to have to pound the rock, and we're going to have to take some pressure off of Justin Fields. You said it, Alec. Myles Garrett, you don't want him in his face. And that was the argument for not starting him week 1 because you didn't want Aaron Donald in his face. But also, he's going to have to play against them at some point, right? Like, I don't know. My game plan would just be open it up, take more chances. But I want to say keep it simple because you do need to keep it simple for a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. I feel like he is better than the Bears coaching staff is giving him credit for, at least publicly.
All right, so my final question here, we're going to go to the defensive side of the ball because you guys have a starter who is having a heck of a start to the season. You guys have a corner who is the highest rated cornerback, according to Pro Football Focus, who's allowed 4 completions, given up 89 yards, leads the NFL with 5 pass breakups, also leads the NFL in battled passes, has 1 pick, and an opposing passer rating of 66.3. What a first 2 weeks for Jalen Johnson.
Absolutely, man. So I've harped on it on my show. I've harped on it on other shows. Pretty much anybody will listen. This Bears secondary is young. They're inexperienced. They're going to have some troubles this year. But to have a guy like Jalen Johnson in year 2, who I said it before the year, he is going to have to prove he is a true number 1 cornerback. He played outstanding as a rookie alongside Kyle Fuller. Unfortunately, Fuller's gone. This is Jalen Johnson's secondary. You have him back there. Obviously, we still have Eddie Jackson, the mainstay at safety. But, wow, I could not be more impressed. When you sent me that, I honestly didn't realize that. He actually quoted that tweet that you sent me and said, so where did those 89 yards come from? So apparently he doesn't think he's given up that many yards, but he is going to have to be a ball hawk. He's going to have to be a true number 1 all throughout the year. He's going to have to lead this secondary if the Bears want any chance of being a relevant football team. The defense, they did it on Sunday. They forced the 3 turnovers. They really took control of this game. They had the defensive touchdown. They are the reason Chicago won that game on Sunday. And I have a feeling they might have to be the reason that Chicago wins a few more football games this year. As far as Jalen Johnson goes, I wouldn't throw to him if I was throw at him if I was an opposing quarterback. So good on him. We've got a lot of inexperienced dudes back there. Remember, the Bears signed Desmond Trufant in the offseason, try to get a veteran, presence in that secondary. He was supposed to be our number 2. His father, unfortunately, passes away this offseason. He has to leave the team. Bears end up parting ways with him because he just was not there. So they have guys like Duke Shelley. They have another second-year guy, Kendall Vildor, out of Georgia Southern that's getting a lot of time. You still have Trevis Gibson back there alongside Eddie Jackson, who's a veteran at the safety spot. But this is not the same talented, core that we're used to having the past couple of years, led by Kyle Fuller. He, like I said, he moves on to go reunite with Vic Fangio in Denver, and it's Jalen Johnson's time. And through 2 weeks, he's proving that he is up to he's up for it. Like he's game. The highest rated PFF, say what you want about that. I love those PFF ratings. I use them a lot. I know not everybody does, but I think they are really a very good indicator of your performance. And number 1 in the league is nothing to scoff at, especially as I think he's like 23 or 24 year, second year player. Like, see how long we can keep this going, Jalen. We're going to need you.
All right, Andy, before we let you go, how can our listeners keep in touch with you on social media and listen to your podcast?
Absolutely, Alec. As always, thank you so much for having me, letting me ramble on about my team. I'm Andy Hopper. I'm the host of the Brew Party Podcast. So quick rundown. If you like sports, you like having a good time, you like having a couple laughs, not taking yourself too seriously, I'm the show for you. We are at the Brew Party on Twitter and Instagram. We're at the Brew Party Podcast on Facebook. You can subscribe to our YouTube page, youtube.com/the Brew Party. And we are also wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio. Just go to www.thebrewparty.com. Typically do 2 shows per week now that it's football season. So during the week, usually Tuesdays or Wednesdays, we drop an interview. Sometimes it's a solo episode with just me. I haven't done that in quite a while. And then on Fridays or Saturdays, the kind of alternates depending on the schedule. We do our weekly gambling segment, Maloney's Money Line, with my friend Ryan Maloney, where we give out picks for the NFL, college football, against the spread, and over-unders, all that good stuff. Keep track of our records, see who's making the people money, see who's not. This week was not great. I will say that, but it's always a good time. Join the party. We'd love to have you. Yeah, you can follow my personal Twitter at ahop23, spitting out my takes about, University of Illinois athletics, which are a dumpster fire in their own right, and then the Chicago Bears as well. Hey, good. The Cardinals are in the wild card, though.
They are.
Eight straight. Shout out to our guy, Tom Scavetta. How'd you like that sweep of the Mets? But that's another conversation. Go Bears, bear down. Currently in first place at 1-1 in the NFC North until this football. Well, they'll be tied for first place in the NFC North after Monday. Alec, thank you as always for having me. Check out the Brew Party wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of the Alec Walt Show. I'm Alec Walt alongside Andy Hopper. What do you think of the Chicago Bears? Who would you start at quarterback if both Justin Fields and Andy Dalton are healthy? Feel free to comment that below. I agree. Also, forget to like this video and subscribe to Down the Block Sports for more of my exclusive content. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you very soon.